Introduction. Daring Greatly, penned by the renowned research professor and thoughtful leader Brene Brown, is a transformative exploration into the power of vulnerability. Published in 2012, the seminal work delves into the intricate ways in which embracing vulnerability can revolutionise how we live, love, parent and lead. Drawing from over a decade of research, Brown challenges the pervasive societal belief that vulnerability is synonymous with weakness, instead positioning it as a source of strength and courage. Brown, who holds a PhD in social work, has spent years studying themes of courage, shame and empathy. Her expertise and approachable writing style makes complex psychological concepts accessible to a wider audience. In Daring Greatly, she weaves together personal anecdotes, compelling research and practical advice to create a compelling narrative that invites readers to reevaluate their perception of vulnerability. The book's title is inspired by a famous quote from Theodore Roosevelt's 1910 Man in the Arena speech, emphasizing that the true credit belongs to those who dare to engage fully and take risks, even in the face of potential failure. Through this lens, Brown encouraged readers to embrace their imperfections and lean into discomforts, illustrating how doing so can lead to deeper connections, greater innovation, and a more meaningful life. Daring Greatly is not just a book but a call to action. It inspires readers to cultivate a culture of empathy and resilience in their personal and professional lives. Brown's insights are particularly relevant in today's world, where the pressure to appear invulnerable can stifle creativity and hinder authentic connections. By daring to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to potential for profound growth and transformation. Whether you are looking to improve your relationship, enhance your leadership skills, or embark on a journey of self-discovery, Brene Brown's Daring Greatly offers invaluable guidance and inspiration. Book synopsis. Daring Greatly is a groundbreaking book that embarks on a deep exploration of vulnerability and its profound impact on our lives. Brene Brown begins by dismantling the myths and misconceptions that surround vulnerability, challenging the notion that it is a sign of weakness. Instead, she argues that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Brown's journey into vulnerability starts with her own experiences and research. She shares candid stories from her personal life and professional work, making the abstract concept of vulnerability tangible and relatable. By recounting moments in her own struggles and triumphs, she underscores the universal nature of these experiences and connected deeply with her readers. The book is divided into several key sections, each addressing different aspects of vulnerability and its implications. Understanding vulnerability. Brown explains what vulnerability is and what it is not. She defines that it's uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. This section lays the foundation for understanding how vulnerability manifests in our lives and why it is essential for authentic living. Debunking vulnerability myths. In this section, Brown tackles common myths about vulnerability, such as vulnerability is a weakness and I can go it alone. She uses research and real-life examples to refute these myths, demonstrating that vulnerability is a strength that fosters connection and growth. The Vulnerability Armory. Brown delves into the defense we build to protect ourselves from vulnerability, such as perfectionism, numbing, and foreboding joy. She provides strategies for disarming these defenses and embracing vulnerability instead. Shame and empathy. Central to Brown's arguments is the relationship between shame and vulnerability. She explores how shame can prevent us from being vulnerable and how empathy is an antidote to shame. This section includes powerful stories of individuals who've overcome shame through empathy and connection. The power of wholehearted living. Brown introduces the concept of wholehearted living, which involves engaging in the world from a place of worthiness. She outlines 10 guideposts for cultivating a wholehearted life, such as cultivating authenticity, self-compassion, and gratitude. Parenting and leadership. This book also extends the discussion of vulnerability to parenting and leadership. Brown provides practical advice for parents and leaders on how to foster environments that encourage vulnerability and authenticity. She emphasizes the importance of modeling vulnerability to inspire courage in others. Throughout Daring Greatly, Brown seamlessly integrates research findings with heartfelt stories, making the case that vulnerability is essential for living a fulfilling and courageous life. She encourages readers to dare greatly in their own lives by embracing vulnerability, practicing empathy, and striving for authenticity. Main themes and events. Defining vulnerability. Brown begins her journey by defining vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. She explains that vulnerability is not a weakness but a measure of courage. Drawing on her research, she illustrates how vulnerability is the core of all emotions and feelings, highlighting its role in creativity, love, and joy. This foundational concept sets the stage for the rest of the book, challenging readers to reconsider their preconceived notions about what it means to be vulnerable. Debunking vulnerability myths. Early in the book, Brown addresses the 4 prevalent myths about vulnerability. She debunks the idea that vulnerability is weakness, asserting instead that it requires immense courage. She also challenges the belief that I don't do vulnerability, emphasizing that everybody experiences vulnerability whether they acknowledge it or not. By tackling these myths head-on, Brown prepares readers to embrace vulnerability in their own lives. The vulnerability armory. Brown explores the various ways people shield themselves from vulnerability, which she refers to as the vulnerability armory. This includes behaviours like perfectionism, numbing and foreboding joy. She uses real-life examples and research to show how these defences ultimately harm us more than they protect us. For instance, she explains how perfectionism can lead to paralysis and how numbing emotions can prevent us from experiencing true joy. Understanding and combating shame. A significant proportion of the book is dedicated to understanding shame and its impact on our lives. Brown defines shame as the intensely painful feeling that we are unworthy of love and belonging. She discusses the difference between guilt and shame, emphasising that while guilt can be constructive, shame is destructive. Through stories and research, she demonstrates how shame can lead to destructive behaviours and how practicing empathy can combat it. Building shame resilience. Following her exploration of shame, Brown introduces the concept of shame resilience. She outlines the 4 elements of shame resilience. 1. Recognising shame and understanding its triggers. 2. Practicing critical awareness. 3. Reaching out. And 4. Speaking shame. By building resilience to shame, individuals can better embrace vulnerability and live more authentically. The role of empathy. Brown emphasises the power of empathy in overcoming shame and fostering connections. She provides examples of how empathy can bridge divides and create meaningful connections. By sharing stories of individuals who've used empathy to transform their relationships and communities, Brown illustrates the transformative power of this simple yet profound practice. Wholehearted living. Brown introduces the concept of wholehearted living, which involves engaging with the world from a place of worthiness. She outlines 10 guideposts for cultivating a wholehearted life, such as cultivating authenticity, self-compassion and gratitude. These guideposts serve as practical tools for readers to apply the principles of vulnerability and shame resilience in their daily lives. Vulnerability in parenting. Brown extends her discussion of vulnerability to the realm of parenting. She argues that parents must model vulnerability and authenticity to raise resilient and courageous children. By sharing personal stories and research, she provides insights into how parents can create environments that encourage their children to embrace vulnerability and develop a strong sense of self-worth. Vulnerability in leadership. Leadership is another key area where Brown applies her research on vulnerability. She challenges traditional notions of leadership that prioritize control and invulnerability. Instead, she advocates for leaders who are willing to be vulnerable and authentic, fostering environments of trust and innovation. Through case studies and examples, Brown demonstrates how vulnerability can lead to more effective and compassionate leadership. Daring greatly in practice. In the concluding sections of the book, Brown offers practical advice for integrating the principles of vulnerability into everyday life. She provides strategies for practicing gratitude, setting boundaries, and cultivating self-compassion. By sharing stories of individuals who've dared greatly in their own lives, Brown inspires readers to take their first steps towards embracing vulnerability. Daring greatly is a powerful call to embrace vulnerability and live more authentically. Through her thorough research and engaging storytelling and practical advice, Brene Brown equips readers with the tools they need to transform their lives and relationships. By daring to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to deeper connections, greater creativity, and a more meaningful life. Key takeaway points. Embrace vulnerability as courage. Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a measure of courage. It involves the willingness to show up and be seen, even when there are no guarantees. By embracing vulnerability, we open ourselves to the possibility of connections, creativity, and personal growth. Actionable steps. Start by identifying situations where you feel vulnerable, such as sharing your thoughts in a meeting or expressing your feelings in a relationship. Practice speaking up and being honest in these moments, acknowledging the discomfort but also recognizing the potential for deeper connections and understanding. Example: next time you are hesitant to share a new idea at work, remind yourself that innovation often comes from taking risks. Share your idea even if it feels uncomfortable and encourage others to do the same. Cultivate shame resilience. Shame can paralyze us and prevent us from being vulnerable. Developing shame resilience involves recognizing shame, understanding its triggers, and practicing critical awareness. Actionable steps. When you experience shame, try to identify the source of those feelings. Practice self-compassion and challenge the negative messages you tell yourself. Reach out to trusted friends or family members to share your feelings and gain perspective. Example: if you make a mistake at work and feel a sense of shame, remind yourself that everybody makes mistakes. Discuss it with a colleague or a mentor who can provide support and remind you of your worth. Foster empathy in relationships. empathy is an antidote to shame and a crucial component of meaningful connections. By practicing empathy, we can better understand and support others. Actionable steps. Make a conscious effort to listen actively without judgment when others share their experiences. Validate their feelings and offer support without trying to fix the problem immediately. Example: when a friend confides in you about a difficult situation, resist the urge to give advice right away. Instead, acknowledge their feelings by saying, "That sounds really tough, I'm here for you." Practice wholehearted living. Wholehearted living involves engaging with the world from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating qualities like authenticity, self-compassion, and gratitude. Actionable steps. Start a daily gratitude practice by writing down 3 things you're thankful for each day. Practice self-compassion by speaking to yourself with kindness and understanding, especially during challenging times. Example: when you feel overwhelmed by self-doubt, pause and reflect on your accomplishments and the positive feedback you've received. Remind yourself that you are enough just as you are. Model vulnerability in leadership. Effective leadership involves modeling vulnerability and authenticity. Leaders who are willing to show their imperfections and uncertainties create environments of trust and innovation. Actionable steps. As leaders, share your own challenges and uncertainties with your team. Encourage open dialogue and create a safe space for a team member to express their ideas and concerns. Example: in your next team meeting, start by sharing a recent mistake that you made, what you learned from it, and invite others to share their experiences and discuss how the team can support each other in taking risks and learning from failures. Parenting with vulnerability. Parenting with vulnerability means modeling authenticity and courage for your children. By doing so, you help them develop resilience and a strong sense of self-worth. Actionable steps. Be open with your children about your own struggles and emotions. Encourage them to express their feelings and reassure them that it's okay to be imperfect. Example: if you have a difficult day, share with your child how you felt and how did you cope. Encourage them to talk about their own feelings and brainstorm healthy ways to handle challenging emotions together. Disarm your defenses. The defenses we build to protect ourselves from vulnerability, such as perfectionism and numbing, often hinder our ability to connect and grow. Disarming these defenses involves recognizing and addressing them directly. Actionable steps. Identify the specific defenses you use to avoid vulnerability. Work on replacing these behaviors with healthy coping mechanisms such as mindfulness or seeking support from others. Example: if you tend to numb your feelings by overworking, set aside time each day for relaxation and self-reflection. Practice mindfulness exercises to stay present and acknowledge your emotions without judgment. Engage in critical awareness. Critical awareness involves understanding the cultural and societal influences that shape our perceptions of vulnerability and worthiness. By developing this awareness, we can challenge harmful norms and beliefs. Actionable steps. Educate yourself about the societal pressures that contribute to feelings of shame and unworthiness. Reflect on how these pressures affect your own behaviour and beliefs and seek out perspectives that challenge these norms. Example: read books or articles about the impact of media on body image and self-worth. Discuss these topics with friends or in support group to gain a broader perspective and support each other in challenging unrealistic standards. Final thoughts. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown is a transformative journey into the heart of vulnerability and its profound impact on our lives. Throughout the book, we learned about Brown's groundbreaking research and the courage it takes to embrace vulnerability. We were provided with a compelling research illustrating how vulnerability is not a weakness but a source of strength and connection. We delved deep into the book's critical ideas, such as debunking vulnerability myths, building shame resilience, and fostering empathy. We explored how these themes are intricately woven through personal anecdotes, extensive research, and practical advice, making the abstract tangible and relatable. Brown's insights on parenting, leadership, and the wholehearted living offer valuable guidance for readers seeking to apply these principles in their own lives. From embracing vulnerability as courage to modelling authenticity in leadership and parenting, these key takeaways provide a roadmap for personal and professional growth. They empower readers to disarm their defences, cultivate empathy, and engage in critical awareness, fostering a more authentic and connected way of living. As we conclude, one mind-blowing realisation stands out. Vulnerability is the birthplace of everything we crave. Innovation, creativity, love, and joy all stems from our willingness to embrace uncertainty and take risks. This insight challenges the deeply ingrained societal belief that vulnerability is synonymous with weakness, revealing it instead as a powerful force of transformation. In Daring Greatly, Brene Brown not only provides the tools to embrace vulnerability, but also to inspire a shift in perspective that can lead to profound change in how we live, love, parent, and lead. The journey through this book is not just about understanding vulnerability, it's about daring to show up and be seen even when there are no guarantees. Daring greatly is more than a guide, it's a call to action to live more wholeheartedly and courageously. Embracing vulnerability is not just an option, it is the key to unlocking a life of meaning, connection, and true fulfillment.